grandparents that criticize the parents in the presence of the children. It's a devastating experience. They criticize them about everything. And in many cases, these grandparents compete with the parents for affection. And that's disastrous. Disastrous. It tears the grandchild apart.
Welcome to the Ferris Love Podcast. Here we explore spiritual insights and practical strategies to help you cultivate a family life rooted in beautiful, self-giving love. Join us as we invite experts to share uplifting perspectives and actionable advice for navigating the joys and challenges of modern family dynamics.
Welcome back to the Ferris Love Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today I am joined with Dr. Gerald Sperrazzo. Dr. Gerald, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm really excited about our conversation. But before we get started, Doctor, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself to our listeners who may not be familiar with who you are?
Certainly. I am a retired university professor. I taught at the University of San Diego in the Department of Psychology for about 30 or 40 years. I am now retired. I did the same thing with my clinical practice. I had a private practice for the equal number of years, and I am also retired from that. I'm a clinical psychologist by profession, and I am no longer practicing as a clinical psychologist. In terms of my family background, which has some relevance to what I'm talking about today, I am a widowed person, married 53 years.
Wow.
And then my wife passed away 12, 13 years ago. I have 4 children, 14 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
Now, while that sounds miraculous, it really is the most miraculous. The most miraculous thing is that we all live in the same city, so we are all here together with each other all of the time,
That is so cool.
which is a miracle in itself. So we see each other very frequently. We get together for birthdays. We get together for anniversaries, weddings, baptisms, confirmations, and we just see each other all the time. That's a kind of wonderful blessing for me, because as a grandparent, I have contact with so much of my family all of the time. So I'm really very blessed. I have many friends who are my age who have grandchildren, but they never see them. They're states or different countries, and it's sort of sad because it's a blessing that they don't really experience.
For sure. It's rare to have family, like all your family, so nearby. Normally it's you have 2 children that live nearby and the other 2 are, gone. But you're very blessed to have everybody so close.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. I have friends who have contact with their grandchildren, but only through FaceTime. They've never met their grandchildren, but occasionally they'll talk to them on FaceTime and check in with them. But that's a difficult kind of relationship to maintain.
For sure.
So I'm blessed, yes.
Very blessed. You mentioned that you see everybody for baptisms and birthdays, but besides those, do you see them on a regular weekly basis too?
Somewhat. One or many of my family members will call me and say, "Can you join us at dinner?" Or we're going on a picnic. Would you join us? Or we're going. I'm invited to many things.
You're a very popular guy.
Not really. I'm just available.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that background. To jump into kind of the meat of this episode, we want to talk about grandparenting. And it sounds like you have built a beautiful family and now are in this stage of life where you are grandfathering to many, which is, and great grandfathering to many as well, which is such a cool thing. What are the principal gifts of good grandparents?
Yes, I think grandparents are a special segment of the population that are extremely blessed
Mm-hmm.
because they're at a stage of life where the demands on them are much less than they used to be when they were working. So they have a lot of time, a lot of availability. One of the blessings that grandparents bring to children and to the family is unconditional love. That's the principal one. Unconditional love. It's the grandparent who comes to the grandchildren and gives them affection, attention, warmth, love, and gets nothing in return. Well, I shouldn't say nothing in return. We get a lot in return. We get a lot of love
Yeah.
from them and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
affection from them. But one of the principal conditions for effective grandparenting is being capable of giving unconditional love. And not all grandparents can do that or want to do that or are able to do that. But if they are, it's the greatest gift of all, and it's their greatest virtue.
Mm-hmm.
Another big virtue grandparents have is a capacity for patience.
Mm.
They're able to endure a whole lot more than what they used to be able to endure when they were younger. So they tolerate grandchildren with a tremendous amount of affection. They put up with their little games and their little foibles.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the expectations that parents have of their children. So they're very
Yeah.
patient with them. And they're
Mm-hmm.
patient with all of the children, not just one of the children. Or they have that wonderful capacity for waiting, for listening,
Mm-hmm.
for being present.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe another characteristic of the grandparents, which is always very evident, is their generosity.
Yeah.
They are very generous.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have more excess wealth, and they want to share that wealth with their grandchildren. They buy things for their grandchildren, whether they need them or not. They sometimes make enormous gifts to them, especially in this day and age when grandchildren are having a very hard time finding homes that they can afford to buy.
Mm.
And very
Mm-hmm.
often, grandparents will make gifts to them to help them to get started.
Yeah.
That's a big step for these grandchildren, and they
Mm-hmm.
so appreciate that. So appreciative
Yeah.
of that. So they're
Yeah.
generous. The other thing that you can't ignore is the wisdom of grandparents. Grandparents have a history that grandchildren don't know about. And
Mm-hmm.
they'll often come to me and say, what was it like when you were so and so age, or what was
Yeah.
it like working? How did you propose to your nana? Wha
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get married? All these kinds of questions, which is wonderful because the grandparent is the depository of the history of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So the grandparent provides a kind of continuity of the history of that entire generation of people that won't be there for very long.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and maybe one other characteristic is faithfulness.
Yeah.
Grandparents are the transmitters of the faith of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a sort of a special privilege, I think I want to say, of conveying this faith in a way that's different from what their parents are doing. Their parents
Mm-hmm.
their parents are directive, their parents are instructive. Their parents take them to the church, takes them to catechism, and But grandparent ensures that these kids are getting their formation that they need as Christians. And they encourage the parents too, because sometimes they're just overwhelmed. So they pass on the faith. Maybe those are the sort of the major characteristic, I think,
Yeah.
parents. There are probably more, but
Yeah, for sure. Those are some really good, great gifts that grandparents are able to
Mhm.
give to their grandchildren.
Yeah,
I do want to ask, you mentioned all these wonderful gifts that grandparents can give to their families. What advice would you give to the grandparent who isn't lucky enough to have all their grandchildren nearby? How would you suggest they are able to give their unconditional love and share the gift of being a grandparent with their grandchildren, even if they're kind of far away?
that's kind of hard, and
Yeah.
that's really common. It's not uncommon. I have a
Yeah.
friend who has 6 grandchildren and has never interacted with any of them
Mm,
because one of them is in Rome, another one is in Japan, the other one is in South Carolina. There's
they're so spread out.
there's no way they're going to have contact.
Yeah.
So they do the best they can. And I asked them, how do you manage this?
Mhm.
And one of them says, I FaceTime a lot. I do this regularly, but
Yeah.
said it's not very fulfilling to him.
Mhm.
It's a stopgap effort kind of thing. And that's all they have in many instances. When they don't have any contact at all, they can pray for their grandchildren.
Mm.
Praying for their grandchildren is essential
Yeah.
because nobody else may be praying for them in terms of the family, the rest of the family. And just trying to write letters or make telephone calls or visits,
Birthday cards.
yeah, birthday cards. He's wealthy enough to make visits.
Mm.
So he happens to take off and go to Rome and spend some time, but it's only a couple of weeks. Or
Mhm.
he goes to South Carolina where his other grandchild.
Yeah.
But not all grandparents can do that. It's
Mhm.
tragic if they are separated from each other. It's a great
Yeah.
loss, I think, for the grandchildren.
Mhm. For I think all parties involved,
Yeah,
you know. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Because the parents often need the help of the grandparents in
Yes.
parenting their children. They will,
Mhm.
can you take our kids for a couple of hours? Can you
Mhm.
do this for us? Can you
Yeah.
help us financially? We can't pay the electric bill this month.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, you made a very great point that grandparents have patience that sometimes the parents don't have the capacity for just because,
Yeah.
they're in it. They're in it with the 3-year-old tantrums, and the
Yeah.
grandparent can kind of laugh about it because they don't have to deal with it as much and they just have more patience when it comes to these things.
And it gives them a break. It gives
Mhm.
it's nice
Yeah.
to pull away from that. Yeah.
So you beautifully laid out all the gifts that grandparents can give to their families. Um, but what are some things, some characteristics that are kind of ineffective for grandparents that those listening should maybe keep in mind when they become a grandparent, or maybe they are a grandparent and they're looking to build a better relationship with their children? What are some things that you would say are ineffective?
Yeah, this is important because not all grandparents are helpful. Not all grandparents are constructive. Not all parents are sensitive
Hmm.
as they should be. So it's sort of a distribution of capabilities among grandparents. There are some who are very effective, but there are some on the other end of the spectrum that really need to distance themselves from their grandchildren and grandfamily. One of those types of grandparents that I know of is those grandparents who are emotionally distant, those grandparents who are disengaged and don't want to be engaged with their grandchildren. They just, they sort of reason that I've been through it once before and I don't want to go through it again. For them, it's a burden to be with their children and grandchildren. Those people should certainly not maintain a continuing relationship. And that's in those situations, they show very little curiosity about the grandchildren. They don't remember their birthdays. They don't send them gifts. They sort of see all of that as not as an act of love, but as sort of an obligation. They do it because they feel they have to or ought to, and there's very little love and affection involved in these relationships. In these instances, grandchildren often feel unimportant in
Hmm.
lives. They're unseen, they're unknown, and sometimes grandchildren feel uncared for.
Mhm.
So that's one of the type of relationships that should not be fostered. If grandparents don't have the capability of responding otherwise, it's probably best that they stay away.
Mm.
They're actually engaging, their engagement is hurting the grandchildren, not really
Mhm.
helping the grandchildren. The second kind of grandparent that is not productive are the grandparents that undermine the parents.
Mm.
These are grandparents that criticize the parents in the presence of the children.
Mhm.
It's a devastating experience.
Yeah.
They criticize them about everything, about their style of disciplining, or their schooling, or their choice of school, or questions of faith. Why are you taking your children to mass every day?
Mm.
Why isn't that too much? Aren't you overextended? And in many cases, these grandparents compete with the parents for affection.
Mm.
And that's disastrous. Disastrous. It tears the grandchild apart. He doesn't really know how to treat a grandparent like that, and it's
Yeah.
getting lost. So, in terms of the impact on the grandchild, this sort of behavior causes a lot of confusion in the grandchild, a lot of insecurity, and a lot of family tensions. So
Mhm.
that kind of grandparent would be best staying away too. Even though it's a loss for the child, it's better than the damage that grandparent can do.
Interesting.
Another type of behavior in grandparents that is not acceptable, really, is the overindulgent grandparent. This is the grandparent who gives excessive gifts to the children unnecessarily.
Mm.
They have a lot of money, they're wealthy, and they just buy everything for their grandkids, and it makes no sense to the grandchild.
Mhm.
They're getting presents they don't even need.
Yeah.
But it's not good for the children, because what the grandchildren learn is that they're getting short-term pleasure but long-term confusion about why they're getting these gifts to begin with and what to do about it.
Mhm.
Confusing situation for them. So overindulgent grandparents are really not the best kind of grandparents either. Another type of grandparent that has to be weary is the self-centered grandparent. That is the grandparent who's there with grandchildren, not for the sake of the grandchildren, but because they're receiving a great deal of love from the grandchildren. And
Mhm.
it's their needs that are being met, not the grandchild. That's a distortion of the relationship.
Mhm.
And and I have to tell you, there are many grandparents like that.
Yeah.
Grandparents who are widowed, who are alone, who can't wait to see their grandchildren because they're the only people that bestow love to them.
Mhm.
That's not a healthy relationship with their grandchildren, because it's putting a burden on their grandchildren that they don't need. A And one more kind of grandparent that ought not to function is the critical grandparent. You've them. These are the grandparents that come into the house and criticize the family for everything. They criticize the children. They criticize. They complain. They don't like the way the world is. They don't like
Mhm.
the way the church is functioning. They don't like anything. And they complain about, kids today are doing this and that. And when I was this age, we did this.
Mhm.
That's not really an effective modeling. And
Yeah.
it's a style that pushes children away. It's not a good relationship. And of course, one more. I want to mention one more because that's this one is damaging.
Mm.
And this is the grandparent who has poor emotional control.
Mm.
These are grandparents who explode.
Yeah.
Thing happens, and they have always
Mm.
something to complain about or something wrong. And they withdraw their affection from the parent and the child, and they're unable to apologize. They're unable to resolve things.
Mhm.
Parents make the children feel unsafe in an
Mhm.
environment that's explosive. They're responsible for the adults, the parents, being demoralized by their behavior. So these are grandparents that should really remain far away from grandchildren.
Interesting.
They don't add anything to the relationship at all.
Yeah. You listed out some uh characteristics that some individuals may have that ultimately damage the family life. But I did want to ask, for the person listening who maybe recognizes some of those characteristics either in their grandparents or in their children's grandparents, or maybe we have some grandparents listening who they recognize those traits in themselves.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you don't think there should be any contact, or do you think there should be limited contact if it gets to a point where these characteristics overpower a relationship with grandchildren?
Yeah. No, no, no. I think some contact is always very, very important for the
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren and for the grandparent. But if the grandparent recognizes these behaviors,
Yeah.
he or she has to do something about it to change
Mm-hmm.
that behavior in order for their grandchildren to profit from the relationship more.
Yeah.
And they could do that in any number of ways. They could get counseling.
Mm-hmm.
They could go into the counselor and say, "I have this issue with my children, and I do this, and I'm not happy about it, and I'd like
Yeah.
to work on it." That would be
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
productive, very effective. But
Yeah.
in the absence of the willingness to change, then it's best that the parent restrict the visits from the grandparent to the grandchild,
Mm.
certain selective ones, and it would be very good for the parent to be present so that
Yeah.
the parent can protect the child, really, essentially.
Mm-hmm. It's ultimately the protection of the child and in the relationships that they have with adults.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
grandparent can also go to the priest or his priest
Mm-hmm.
and say, "Father, I'm struggling with this kind of an issue. What do you think we should do?"
Mm-hmm.
Often have good advice. They've seen these things before. It's
Yeah,
new to them.
for sure. Yeah, those are very good points. And for our listeners who maybe are entering this stage of grandparenting, it's good to keep in mind because I think that they could view, you mentioned the overindulgent grandparent who just gives and gives and gives, but it's an excess. I think
Yeah.
in their mind, they could think, no, this is my way of showing love,
Yeah.
but they don't realize that it's ultimately creating a relationship that isn't necessarily healthy. Same with the one who maybe overly criticizes or tries to undermine the parents. They think that they're
Helping. They think
helping. Grandparents offer a specific kind of love that isn't meant to. take over a parent's role. It's just supposed to enhance it.
Yes, exactly.
What recommendations do you have or advice do you have for newer recent grandparents that are maybe entering this world and are excited because they have new grandbabies, but want to be able to be fruitful in
Yeah.
the family relationship?
Yeah, Amy, I talked to grandparents about this, and I ended up with about 4 recommendations for new grandparents. And let me just talk about them for a minute. The first recommendation I have is learn to develop the disposition of giving unconditional love. One has to learn that.
Yeah.
We're not born with that capability. We have to learn consciously to give affection and attention and warmth to this young human being in a way that we haven't been used to in quite a long time. We're grandparents now. We have to
Yeah.
learn how to do this. And that involves listening, a great deal of listening, a great deal of contact, and a great deal of patience. And soon that grandparent will learn to give the most precious thing they have to their grandchild,
Yeah.
is unconditional love. I like what St. Thomas says, to will the good of the other. And if we do that for each grandchild, that's a task for the but it's a beautiful task and a beautiful gift. That's my first recommendation. My second recommendation would be to model some behaviors for your grandchildren to observe in you and model the virtues. Learn to model the virtues that they will see in you and emulate in you. First of all, the supernatural virtues. Model your faith, your religious practices, your prayer. Model your intention, your relationship with our Lord. Model hope. Give them a sense of, yeah, there's things are difficult, they're rough. Your relationship with your parent is rough, but it will resolve in time. It's going to be okay. It's going to be a different world in a year. Model charity, which is love, the unconditional love. Show them what it means and how to love as they grow up. They need also to learn how to love as an adult in an adult way. And then once they learn the supernatural virtues, I would urge them to learn the human virtues, the cardinal virtues, and model those. You remember what they are: temperance. Be careful about your eating, your drinking, your maybe talking too much. Justice. Learn to give your employer a full day's work, an honest day's work. Fortitude. Have the courage to say who you are and what you are, as well as your faith, because they need to hear that. Your grandchildren need to hear what you believe.
Yeah.
And finally, prudence. Make good judgments. They'll see it. They observe you. They see everything about you. So those recommendations.
Those are great recommendations. Well, it has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Before I let you go, I do have one last question. You've built this beautiful family, and it seems that you all are, you have good relationships with all of your grandchildren and your children. For the young couple that's looking at that and thinking, oh, we would love to have that in our future. We would love to have this beautiful big family where, children have relationships with each other and our grandchildren have relationships with each other. Do you have a piece of advice for young families who want to attain that? What is something you would suggest they do?
We happen to have that circumstance in our family. Our grandchildren are now getting married. They are young couples having their very first child and starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
and we get a lot of opportunities to talk about how are you doing and how are you doing and how are your finances and what about that house? Can you afford that house?
Yeah.
Nobody can afford a house anymore. So I guess our approach must be a constant conversation about their issue.
Mm.
That means
Yeah.
seeing them often, being
Mhm.
able to see them often and talk to them about their life situation, their work
Mhm.
situation, their marital
Mhm.
situation, their spiritual life. Yeah, as a grandparent, you have an easy opportunity to talk to them about this because they're very, very receptive.
Mhm.
They're not as defensive with grandparents.
Yeah.
Use that opportunity to get into
Mhm.
their life and to help them to become good Christian couples and a good
Yeah.
Christian family.
Wonderful advice. Well, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you, Doctor, for taking so much time to chat with me and share your wisdom with our listeners. Thank you so much for listening to the Ferris Love podcast. We will see you next week.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ferris Love podcast. In 2026, we continue to share the devotion to Mary, Mother of Ferris Love. If you like what you heard on today's show, please visit our website at ferrislovefamilyproject.org, where you can find additional podcasts and other resources for families. Be sure to also check us out on social media at Ferris Love Project. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on an episode soon.